All right, good. Here we are. We're going to be breaking down Marcelo Garcia matches, maybe some rolls. Full screen on this. Tedder Day, okay, has actually beat Marcelo 4 times. Yeah, crazy amount. He just had his number.
Those were early years, or
very early, very early. This would have been
thinking.
like the TT team, Ted Day and Tellis,
Yeah.
Tellis,
Yeah.
which is when, if I'm not mistaken, on my history on it, is when Marcelo, not Marcelo, but Andre Galvao was on the team. Like he was the Ted Day student. This is some early single X, looks like, from Marcelo. Some knee super flared out.
Yep. Toe out, press down on it.
Remember, you were training when we started like charting the Mendez brothers using 50-50, right?
Yeah.
How big of a deal that was.
Yeah, he was definitely in some ways. We were just talking about how influential that single X is on like the Danaher stuff. I mean, you know, Ashigarami's always existed and was always there before, but there's something about the way that Marcelo does it. You gotta think that those New York guys are sort of cross-pollinating too.
Sure, well, and then Alliance HQ. So Marcelo being Alliance, but just seeing what those guys do, I tell everybody about that roll off with Fabs and Fabio Gugel. What's interesting too is to see like when the Mendez brothers and Marcelo, it's like when people didn't have it much against.
Yeah, Marcelo's got that undercut on his leg.
Mm-hmm. I wonder if he'll turn that to X. He's got that scoop grip.
Yeah, his legs are so strong, man. Call him for reaping.
Yeah.
Right? He's going to push his foot across.
A lot of patience here.
Yeah. Does he have that sleeve on that side? Or
man, Teddy's got a good base too.
He's got his sleeve on that.
I never understood how his name is spelled the way it is, and his name is Teddy. Like the first time I saw it, I was like, Tedder Day? And then I saw it and I had the H's and R's in it. And I was like, I get it, I guess.
Nice in that kind of waiter sweep position.
I love how Donaher has a different name. Like if you have X with an underhook.
Yeah.
The scoop grip.
Yeah.
I almost wish that there was a name for the one. Tenth Pint calls it an electric underhook.
Yeah.
We call it valve under. Right. But now I've like been thinking, I'm like, I need one for the overhead. Leg overhead. But I get his point is like you don't want confusion.
Yeah.
I'm a big subscriber to that.
Well, remember how much time we spent trying to just come up with words, descriptions for things that we were doing. Yeah.
Okay, so I showed that double, you bridge and lift them. Yeah. And so now this man was like, what's that? I was like, well, it's, and I started like somewhere, I was like, it's called the bridge and lift. And I was like, I don't know what it's called, man. I was
call it like a push-up instead.
Yeah, I used to call it the double bridge, but I used to do it with more of a double bridge. Now I don't do it. That's almost like some Ryan Hall spin under.
Yeah.
It's like Ryan Hall's 50-50 stuff. That's somebody. I bet we can make that. Be super interesting. McMillan and I are going to do a podcast. We need to talk to the assembly team about this stuff. So they set up and they come in and they do all sorts of stuff. Where you just taste it. You get people from out of the state. But we're going to try and do just like a live Unraveled episode. That's
Look at Marcelo trying to survive just with that hook.
With his smash position. Dude, I've been under Jared Dobbs' position in a match right there with Justin Rader coaching him, and I was able to get out, actually. He's so close to butterfly.
Yeah.
But
these guys everybody that whole time just to try to do it. That's a good pass. Flatten his hips out.
It's almost like Marcelo almost went into the that stiff arm stuff.
Yeah, and he tried to on the way out. Anticipated.
See, this will be interesting to see how this match progresses because it's sort of like guard pass in the guy that won because this is a match that goes 10 minutes direction.
Yeah.
But we're wanting to have a law enforcement podcast with that Ari guy from Southern because he started that.
Yeah,
movement. Yeah. Oh, I'm also talking to DJ Jack this week.
Oh, right.
Like, it's not Bud, it's something else. But it's close. But, it's like, hey, man, I want to do a podcast with you. I was like, and one of my guys has asked me about it at least twice. Randy was saying,
yeah.
It's not Mike Budnick, but it's like I thought it was. It's real similar to that. Mike Budnick is a different jiu-jitsu guy in terms of defense. It has some the triangle.
Yeah,
he's
right.
got the cool little.
It's cool.
Mike Bidwell. It's Bidwell. So it's another B name. Oh man.
At that side control.
I like how he's controlling the pant line with his grip there, right on the crotch.
Yeah, right on the crotch is what he's doing. He's controlling the crotch. Which worked.
Oh, man.
Marcelo gets a little desperate.
Hoisted himself out. Yeah, taking him out from a losing bout situation is something that's real similar. Oh, man, and he was super stacked when that happened, too. Did you see how much weight he had in his hand?
So we start with Marcelo lost. Doesn't happen very often.
I kind of think the point, why I wanted to watch some of his stuff is to see.
He got super smashed, right? And that side control was just so intense. And Marcelo got a little, he got a little desperate, right? He was trying to push out and things like that and open his back a little bit.
Okay, so this may be the first match I ever knew about Marcelo being in. And this is a big thought changer.
Yeah, for sure.
Because everybody after this was like, do you have to have hooks to check them in? Yeah. But right off the gate, look at that. Beautiful. Almost had the arm for crucifix.
Yeah. And we talked about this a time where Marcelo goes for the choke even before he was choking. Before, he was choking on the way to hooks, right?
That's that classic drag pull down through there.
So he's there.
Yeah. Oh, and he even had the seatbelt choking. Let's see if we can spot him against that now. Is he out?
pretty crazy.
I think this is 04, if I'm not mistaken.
But it was, you know, the breakthrough stuff. Like, you see Marcelo and Jiu Jitsu, and it's obviously incredible. And no-gi stuff. It's just like,
Yeah, I remember the no-gi section of the expo. Where I had like the gi, everything was broken up being no-gi. I thought that was cool.
yeah.
Você viu ali quando nós dissemos pela parte da
So,
manhã, entrou o
let me ask you
Matheus.
this. What have you,
E aí tem
you
duas
heard anything about it might be like Q-tips aren't supposed to go in your ears? You might not supposed to be raise someone's legs if that doesn't do anything. There's a whole bunch of medical people that say that when somebody goes unconscious, like to turn them on their side or to hit them, and that the leg raising thing is a bunch of bro science.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you think about it, and you know, I hate to say it, but this has been on my mind because of the George Floyd
Yes,
stuff,
that's why it's
right?
been more on my mind for that same reason.
So basically, what you're doing when you're choking somebody, or you know, like if the guy has a knee on the guy's neck, it's you know, you're not taking out their wind, you're cutting off their carotid artery, and then the carotid runs on the outside and the jugular runs on the inside. You cut off both of those, right? And so any flow between your heart and your brain, that's what it's disrupting. And so your brain's not getting enough oxygen, that's what makes you pass out, right? And so, like, messing with somebody's extremities is not going to restore that link between your brain and your heart.
Everybody's like, it makes the blood go back to their head, bro. Like, I mean, that's kind of
well, and the idea is to get the blood out of their extremities and back into their center, right? And that's the theory. But honestly, you know, if your heart's going to pump anywhere first, it's pumping to your brain. That's like the whole deal. So all this stuff on the outside is kind of, you know, so I could see I could see why people do it, but I can also see why it's
why I had a problem with it in the beginning, and then I just kept reading about it and kept like seeing what people's opinions were.
Yeah.
But honestly, like the last time I tried to wake somebody up, it was Lassiter, and he didn't wake up. And that's like one of the first times that he's been choked out long. but he didn't wake up, and
Sorry,
it was like the first time that somebody hadn't woke up to get their legs raised, and I was just like, I started to get kind of worried, and I dropped down and I shelved his legs, and I was just like, everybody's woke up every time that I've raised their legs, but it could have been coincidence. It's only been 10 times total, and I could have been going to wake up anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, and and the thing is, you want to do, the biggest instinct is to do something, right? Somebody's lying there limp, and we're not here, you know, we're practicing how to, you know, knock somebody out and to make them pass out and things like that. But, you know, it's practice, and when it really happens, you know, you go into that, you know, it's a panic mode. You want to help. You don't want, you'd never intended to hurt that person, right? And then suddenly they're passed out. And you're like, oh man, did I really hurt them?
Yeah.
Did I, you know, are they getting brain damage because they're not getting enough oxygen to the brain? And of course they're not. I mean, their body will adjust and things will come out, but that's your first instinct, you know? It's like, I didn't mean to do that.
What do you think about just while we're on the topic, about New York banning the chokehold?
Man, I got...
I'm mixed on it.
Well, I understand where people are coming from. What they don't want... So there's... With the George Floyd thing, that Chapin guy, there's one of two explanations. Either he's, you know, completely sadistic and intentionally did all of that, or he was poorly trained and was ignorant of what he was doing. I think there may be a third in between. He might have been in shock about partway through that, and just because he was blind staring.
Yeah, like a mind numbness.
Yeah, mind numbness kind of thing. And so I don't know. I don't know what's in that guy's head. I don't know what his motivation was.
or what his mental health situation is, whether that's on whatever spectrum.
Yeah, yeah. But clearly what he did, right? You put your knee on somebody's neck like that, and particularly when somebody starts complaining about it, right? Complaining about their heart, you know you're starting to cut off their blood flow. And then you stay there for 9 minutes, there's no doubt. I mean, you cut off his blood flow. When that guy passed out halfway through that, and then the guy stayed on him 4 more minutes, it's friggin' murder. I mean, it's like, it's straight up. So I get needing to prevent people from doing that and understanding that, you know, you can't kill people with this sort of stuff. Flip side of that, though, is that you take away in a really violent person, and say if a person's, you know, we talked about, I was a bouncer for a little while in college, and had a guy on PCP who was beating up on his girlfriend, and he was out of his mind, and he wasn't going to stop no matter how we physically restrained him. Luckily, we had multiple people there and could hold him down until the cops came. But if it was just me and I wasn't able, you know, if I'd had a chokehold and I could have made him pass out to kind of subdue him, get him into a position where I could control him, right? I'm putting everybody in danger there if I don't have that in my arsenal. Also, if I'm a cop, am I more likely to use other weapons? Am I more likely
That's my biggest
to be
concern.
afraid and to use my gun and to kill somebody? So I'm not sure it was the choke itself in this instance, but it was how it was applied and its duration and that kind of thing that was really the dangerous thing. So, you know, I'm mixed about it. I don't know. I get where it's coming from. I get why you don't want to do it, but at the same time, are you making matters worse, or could you potentially make matters worse?
Like, I think pausing it to, like, okay, and to just decide, are we going to keep it in as a part of the training, whether that's New York or nationwide or state by state, and then we're going to increase the training and we bring it back or whatever. And I'm not necessarily, like, if you get down to it, like, my contention is, like, okay, you take that particular case. This man never got to go through the justice system. He wasn't even formally charged with anything.
Oh, yeah, no.
Like, he was unarmed.
Yeah.
Right? And they didn't go to their duty belts, but it's like the control and force necessary and the nervousness and lack of confidence that many officers don't train. And literally, like how we over the years have been like, bro, I just started how to do the flower sweep and I'm a brown belt.
Yeah.
Right? It's like we learn these new ways to do things, and it's like, oh, we went like 10 years doing this kind of incorrect, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like Jack taught me how to do the rear naked choke correctly.
But here's the thing, right? So just like what we were talking about, anytime I've choked somebody unconscious, you know, on the mat in practice, you know, and I've never had to do it in a, you know, life-saving or violent situation. And I know it's different. But remember what we were just talking about is that first instinct is like, I'm not trying to hurt that person. I didn't mean to hurt that person. So I want to help them. I want to, you know, it makes me panic that I put somebody in that position. And, you know, part of it's on them because they need to tap and things like that. And, you know, but there are real life cues that are essentially a tap. You know,
the wheeze.
When that guy's saying, I can't breathe, that is a tap, right? Or at the very worst, say you're still afraid at that point and he passes out, he's not a threat. Why stay on his neck? And that's the part I cannot explain. I don't get what happened there. I mean, that seems, even if you didn't have any training, not to have that instinct to like, all right, I'm here to, you know, yeah, I got to subdue this person, but he's a person. I gotta help him if he's in duress, just like anybody else. And that didn't flip over for that guy.
Yeah,
but,
I know.
you know, Josh and I were talking about this too, though. He had apparently, and I don't know the whole story, and so I'm kind of going off just bits and pieces that I remember reading. But I think this guy had you know, violent instances before. I think he'd used his service weapon a couple of times.
Mm-hmm.
And Josh and I, McMillan and I have been on this project to talk about kind of what happens to police officers and nurses and doctors and things like that after they have those, when somebody dies. And so it's this thing called second trauma victim. Okay, so anybody who's treating somebody who's been through trauma or is a part of that trauma, right? Even if they're in official positions and they're there to kind of protect and keep the peace and stuff, they're just as traumatized, right? And so what does that do to their future occurrences of this? Does it, because he'd been in violent situations before, does it make it more likely that he's going to resort to violence in a future situation? And do police officers, do they study that? Do they take that into account? Are they training based on that? And those are big, you know, even before all the COVID stuff and all of the George Floyd stuff, for the last like 2 years, McMillan and I have been talking about, hey, we need an institute that deals with that second trauma thing. Talk to people at the hospital about that. And I think this might be a case where that could be important. I mean, we'll know more when the trial comes, but I've got tons of questions about that.
Like when I said mental health, that's exactly, because I mean, there's no way, like the most disturbing thing I've ever heard stories from people I know or was friends with that were in law enforcement was them talking about suicide.
Yeah.
Right? Like, just like, hey, no one was violent towards you. You didn't have to fight anyone. You didn't have to use your weapon. But you had to see something.
Yeah.
That you're not going to forget.
Yeah. Yeah.
And maybe you had to see half a dozen of them across 10 years.
Yeah. Well, and divorce rates and drug addiction and alcoholism. I mean, all that stuff, it, just like with, you know, PTSD with people in the military, you know, it's happening to cops. In fact, it's probably happening to cops more often and over a longer period of time.
What do you think about this? This is something that someone brought up on that same thought, is for that reason. And I hate to even say this because I would not want to cancel out anyone's opportunity, but should vets, that's what we see. We see a lot of vets with PTSD who come back, they've done a tour, and it's very logical for them to be a cop. Yeah. They have the skills,
for sure.
But then they also take like a military style training in with them, and maybe some of the occurrences. So there's like some negative crossover there.
There can be, yeah. And it's, yeah, I know. I don't want to take away anybody's opportunities too, but it's also maybe, you know, the other big discussion about all this is like, what is a cop's job? And unfortunately these days, like so many jobs that people have these days, their jobs have gotten to encompass all kinds of stuff that they're not really originally trained for or not expected to do. I heard I think it was the police chief in Houston was talking about this, and he's like, you know, you're asking my cops to do too much. You're asking my officers to do too much. You know, they're having to do like animal control. They're not trained in animal control. So you're asking them to do that and, you know, deal with the person.
Well, and like some people I like, and I know this isn't common in all communities, but like ticket quotas and stuff like that, they say they're very busy, and I know that they answer tons of calls. Yeah. But it's like they're also out there trying to catch us doing bad stuff. Yeah. And I'm like, well, okay, so maybe we could just like, if we were all sitting around like firefighters waiting on a call that there's a fire, it's like firefighters don't go out and be like, where's a fire? Oh, there's one.
That's
like,
an interesting point.
You know, like, but that's a point. It's like, and this is another thing that people like I've talked to from my age, just like Thurman and I talked about the other day. it's like, are you a law-abiding citizen? Yeah, me too. Do you get fearful in some strange way every time you pass a cop? You're like, oh, it's just attended to. How fast am I going? It was my seatbelt, and you're already you're within all the guidelines of the law. But I've ever since I've been 16, and driving, I'm like, oh, cop,
Yeah.
and why is that? And I've wondered several times because I personally haven't had many negative experiences with getting pulled over or anything. I mean, it's always nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
But
well, and it's there are so many different philosophies on how you serve and protect people, right? And so the patrols and stuff, I think, part of the idea is that is deterrence. And so you get out there, you're being watched, and so maybe you're less likely to do those things. And particularly like the little careless things like speed, right?
And that's a great thing.
Yeah. But, on the other hand, serving and protecting is also, it's not just punishment. It's helping people to do better and to give them, a more sort of positive reinforcement for social norms, right? And basically enforce laws, which, we have all agreed on those. I mean, that's the other thing that bugs me to some degree about all of the discussions on this. People are making police officers into this sort of other, into this group. And
they're all together.
Right. And
nationally.
Their cultures are all very different depending on where they are. And then individually, they're going to be different from one another.
Did Conway make national news for being unique in their culture and how they dealt with all the? Was that a different?
Well, no, I think I saw a couple of newspaper articles about comparing how the Fayetteville police reacted to protests versus how Bentonville police did. And that was kind of interesting because that's kind of a stark cultural sort of thing. Now, it may be timing too, and it may be, but, how you confront people, how you confront a protester is sort of an indication of your culture. And all those, those police officer cultures can be really different. And some of them are very sort of serve and protect minded, and some of them are more punitive. And that may be something that we have to discuss and decide on. Is what's better for people, and it may be different for different environments too.
Have you been seeing? So, and I have not a lot. I've engaged in some of the dialogue, but I see a trend in we're sitting here riffing on maybe some possible solutions. And I know Chris Thompson made a great post what are your ideas? And
I love that we know so many cops too.
Yeah.
Our people that have been cops before, because Andy was a cop before, Chris Thompson was a cop.
And McMillan being he has so much experience.
Yeah, and Brandon.
Yeah, he was just here last night.
Yeah.
He just stopped by and said, hey, he's in town. Yeah. He loves it. He listens to the podcast. He's been tuned in. So, but yeah, that's, I just want the narrative to be open to things we're talking about. And hey, so there's this mental health situation where this guy, what are we going to do for officers that on the job? Because unfortunately they do have to discharge their weapon in a life or death situation against someone who probably had a weapon. And very much in many cases, there's a video for everything for us to watch. And I just want the dialogue to be around the solutions. It seems like right now it's a lot of, well, we can't do that because of this. And we can't do that because of that. My hours, and I already don't, my family's second job, and my schedule. And it's look, if you can train a group of cops for 40 hours, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, once a year, you can train them every week, twice a week for 45 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah. And, and training is, God, man, I can't see a reason for not doing more training. More training is always better, but
well,
I also think this, cops they are a reflection of our democratic system. And, you know, when I was studying, you know, what people do in Vietnam and stuff, and so I talked about a lot about formation of government and creating police and stuff, and creating police culture. And they had a horrible one in Vietnam. I mean, it was really autocratic. But if you think about it, cops are the most front-facing official representation of your government. And so they represent your values more on a day-to-day basis than anybody else, much more than politicians do, right?
That's a great point.
And so at what point did we stop thinking that they are a reflection of us? They're not some other, right? They're a reflection of us. And I think it dawned on me when I was like, you know, actually the cop that I worry most about is Logan. Because, you know, he's a state trooper. And
yeah, I've hit his page several times.
Yeah, and you know, it's a different kind of gig, right? Being a state trooper, and there's, you know, it's.
When they got called in heavy in our state.
Yeah, and they're getting called to all kinds of different places, and they're having to move around a whole bunch. And then plus, you know, you talk about the day-to-day kind of thing. I mean, you know, probably the most dangerous place that we have is out on those highways every day. And so I worry about Logie, but I was thinking about that. I mean, Logan's not a reflection of some other group or somebody that I don't know or haven't trained with. That's somebody who's a reflection of, you know, our conversations and our society and the people that we're around all the time. And so I'm not, people have kind of distanced themselves from things that they see as, you know, they don't want to be associated with right now. And I know that's an immediate sort of visceral reaction to all of this.
Yeah.
But it's also important for us to get over that and to realize that, hey, you know, we're ultimately, these folks are a reflection of us and what our values are and what we want to do.
Well, it's an interest. So do you think if we've seen some disassociation between the public and the police, is that a two-way street? Is that are people who hit that disassociation level, are they doing that in response to seeing, like you're saying, different cultures and how they engage with the protesters? There may be some disassociation there culturally, where they look at people within their community because it's high crime or.
Yeah, absolutely. It's trust, right? And so we've had so many years of the disintegration of trust in all public officials. And, you know, it's been going on my entire lifetime. You know, Watergate happened when I was 4 years old, right? And so my entire living memory.
It was the Rodney King riots when I was.
Yeah, and all that crap you're reading about now with the CIA and all that stuff in the early 70s. I grew up with all of that stuff, right? And so the trust in government has just, you know, been disintegrating ever since. And it kind of goes up and down. You know, you have times where it's a little bit better and a little bit worse. But in general, right, we've stopped thinking of our government, the people that represent us, as actually being us and truly representing. Yeah. And so I think all of this is more a reflection of a general problem with our democracy. Because democracy takes trust, it takes faith in representation. And, you know, we're at a pretty bad time in all of that. And we got to get that back, you know? And it doesn't have to be perfect. And there's a certain level of distrust of government that you have to have, you need to have, right? I mean, that's written into our Constitution. I mean, the Federalist Papers are full of that. That's what it grapples with, right? How much government do we need? How much do we want? What's practical? What's not practical? And all that kind of thing. And we need to have some distrust of that. But it can't be to the point that we stop believing that they are a reflection of us or they're a representation of us. If that's happened, our democracy's failed, right? because representation is all that this is about. It's all it's about, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, we need to kind of, as a society, we got to figure out that part of it. We got to get that representation back, and you know, at least at a better level. And it'll never be like, okay, we have perfect faith in our government. It shouldn't be there, but it's got to be better.
But everything being a deep state conspiracy for the majority of the populace.
Yeah, man, and things like conspiracy and racism go together. You can think of racism essentially just as a grand conspiracy theory, right?
Well, yeah, like, and then the propagations of like, oh, well, if we integrate, then what's going to happen is this busload conspiracy going around right now. But back then it was, you know, what's going to happen is busloads of black men are going to show up and rape your white women.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
that was a propagated conspiracy theory.
Exactly. It's scapegoating. It's drawing conclusions about people based on little or partial or cherry-picked evidence, you know? And it's prejudice itself. I mean, conspiracy theories are prejudiced by definition because they're incomplete ideas. They're conclusions drawn from incomplete evidence. And it's like we've talked about so many times, it's like the acceptance of chaos, the acceptance that we don't have an explanation. That's human beings' greatest fear. And so, you know, racism is one of those things that people use to try to explain what's happening to them because they don't know. Right? And so they find the scapegoat, they blame stuff on other people for their problems. And then you get all this stuff from that. And so, you know, that's a trust thing as well, right? Are they us or are they not us?
Yeah, with that, so I started listening to Daryl Davis podcast for a third time. He wrote that Clandestine Relationships.
Yeah, it's a really interesting podcast.
But man, so like he's him talking about when he was 10, and this is something else I've heard several people that I know that are black. They brought this up of, well, see, my mom had to have this talk with me. My dad had to have this. My parents had to set me in. And
yeah.
That's something that he goes into, and he's like, well, this book is about me trying to answer the question of how somebody who doesn't know me, has never met me, knows nothing about me, can hate.
Yeah, yeah. And he changed all those people's minds.
I thought it was 20. It's 200.
Which is the most, you know, in some ways, the most encouraging thing in the world.
That's why I keep talking about it. It is. You know? It truly is.
Because it's like, okay, if you really knew me, if you really sat down with me, you know, you'd understand. I'm just another human being, and you know, you don't have to burn crosses in the yard and do all this kind of stuff, you know?
The stories that he tells, the tense, like, moments with that one clan leader that he first, like, makes.
Yeah. And you know what's weird about being an American right now? I know we're having a hard time, and I know we've got a lot of things that sort of challenged our comfort level about a bunch of things. But we're still, you know, we're the wealthiest and most powerful country on earth. And even before we have these problems or these sort of things that remind us that we're vulnerable, we're afraid. You know, racism is a byproduct of fear. You know, and we're, you know, we feel like we're not in control and we're not represented and we don't have a voice and all that kind of stuff. But the evidence is completely to the contrary. We have more voice and more control than any time in human history, but we're incredibly anxious about it. That's a really interesting phenomenon to me. I don't get it.
So you've made this comment before, and like I actually doubted you on it, right? Because you were like, I think that the internet will allow us to come to faster conclusions. And I was like, man, it's more to wade through. That's what I was thinking.
Well, it's both.
It's both. But Marie and I were talking yesterday,
Yeah.
and we were talking about how like she made a post about this, and she spent like dozens of hours reading these primary source letters,
Yeah, right.
written between like the 50s and the 70s.
Yeah, yeah. And she's an expert.
So,
Yeah.
but now I don't have to find Marie or read her book or listen to her on my podcast or anything. I can read that on social media. It's like pouring the acid in the pool.
Yeah, for sure.
It's like, like it's rearing its head on Gordon Ryan today. Did you see this?
No.
Apple News
No.
published a story about Gordon Ryan because Flow Sports released this solidarity statement about Black Lives Matter.
Yeah.
And whether it's Twitter, Instagram, or whatever, Gordon Ryan's got a post making history of what they're calling xenophobic post and racist post. And I can see the argument. Right? I read them and I was like, hey.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, but that's like,
I didn't see that.
There's no delay. That's so why I was like, which is right. It's because there's no delay on the time. It's like, it's right here. He made the post. We can see it.
Yeah. And people feel rushed to make decisions about stuff too, right? And so, you know, we're so used to we have access to so much information now that I think it fools us into thinking that we know what we're talking about, right? And so we push to conclusions a lot faster than we used to, right? And we rely on experts less than we used to because everything is accessible like that. And so our truths, because of all that, our truths become much more individualistic. And they're caught within our own sort of feedback bubbles and things like that. And so finding ways to agree with other people and, you know, feel like you're living in the same world are harder. And so I think that's part of what generates that fear, that sense of chaos, is that we can't agree. I mean, if I'm completely solipsistic, right? And so it means that I don't believe in anybody else's reality except my own, okay? Which is kind of where people are headed these days. I mean, it goes beyond narcissism to this kind of solipsism where, you know, the only reality is the one that I have, that I've created, or that are through my eyes. That would make you incredibly insecure, right? If I don't have a kind of shared sense of reality with other people, that scares the crap out of me, because then you're truly alone in the universe, you know? And I'm afraid that's part of what happens with the internet and stuff. But the flip side of that is that we got a lot more information, right? We know a lot more than we used to know as individuals. And there's this paradox, though, and you know, Socrates talked about this paradox, you know? The more I study and the older I get, the less I'm sure I actually know what I'm talking about. That's a real thing, you know, because you realize that there's so much more out there. But we're kind of in a society where we make the assumption that we know everything, that we have access to everything.
We've been doing Jiu Jitsu. We know leg locks.
Exactly. Truth is, we don't, right? And then, you know, one of the beautiful things about Jiu Jitsu is it's one of those great tests. If you want to find out what you know and what you don't know, come roll.
It'll shine a light.
Come roll. You will find out. You don't know crap. Yeah.
That's why, man. Then that's why I want to get more involved with this movement of, like, look how big Jiu-Jitsu, MMA, striking has become part of it. It's on ESPN. I just always am like, turn on Sports Center. Let me know what you see.
Now it's the only sport on.
Yeah.
Right? No other sports are going. So it's
like speaking of just joking conspiracy theories, but like people are like, yeah, Dana White, Trump, they're in this together, man. Like they do this to shut down all the other industries just so they use, like, and I'm like, Fight Island, man.
I know, Fight Island is hilarious.
Oh, man.
They really do need to come out, like, in that, was it Enter the Dragon?
Oh, I know.
And
They got.
They need to have like the
that.
Bruce Lee garb and all of the robes and crap that they were using. They got to do that full-on
For
fight.
sure. Okay, this is actually Drysdale put this video up. How about that? I want to watch before we get out of here just some footage, and we can skip around, but
Yeah,
just
we got
watch.
way off topic.
We
So
did.
Marcelo Garcia makes it.
And Invictus. Check those guys out. Law Enforcement Collective. But look how much.
Oh man.
I remember, like, when I got big into Marcelo, for some reason I was like, who's beating? And this was the first match I ever saw him lose.
Yeah.
And I didn't know about him losing to Teddy until I heard about it on Rolled Up.
Yeah.
When Budo Jake did that match did the Rolled Up on Teddy.
Yeah.
So I think he went to Brazil for it.
Yeah, there's just not that many of them. I mean, he doesn't lose very often.
Yeah. Man, Robert Drysdale. You know, Dana White used to, speaking of Dana White, used to sponsor Robert Drysdale. He's a teenager.
Is that right?
Robert Drysdale's work right now on like the historical side of jiu-jitsu. Have you been following that? I'll look into it. Yeah, he's done several podcasts about it. He was just on Johnny and his podcast.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll check that out. It's funny about Marcelo is that he's not very big. That dude's legs are so freaking strong. You know?
Yeah.
That's part of the reason that he's amazing jiu-jitsu, but it's also he's got some amazing lower body force. He's almost split completely out when he grabbed that. He uses those feet as hooks. I always wondered, his feet look big to me. Like the length of Marcelo's feet. I wonder if that's actually true because he hooks people so easily.
Yeah, I wonder. If he has some extra longer tendons or something like that.
Yeah.
That is a good point. I wonder what physical attributes led to the development of some butterfly.
Yeah, because those foot hooks are everything for him.
I like how Donaher said, put a sticky hook.
Sticky hook, yeah.
I will.
It's a good term for it.
It is. Well, and like I like it because it's like Chisao.
Yeah,
and
I like his differentiation between strangle and choke too. Yeah.
No, we can
Not
be
really chokes; these are strangles.
We can be an elitist with that now that we've received.
That's right, the knowledge.
Here it is.
Is that a bug? There's an anaconda.
Yeah, I can't really tell.
That's an
Looks like
anaconda. Right? Yep. Yeah, he's doing it with his body.
Let's back it up. You know what matches never get old is like the Hoyler and Bravo matches.
Oh, no. Yeah. They're a little boring because they're in the same position for so long. Yeah, that's an anaconda.
Oh, wow, yeah. See, I remember seeing this first time. I thought he was going to hoist all the way over.
But look what he does to Marcelo's head with his body once he gets it locked in. Because he's pushing his head with his body. Look at that. Yeah. Right? And he's pushing against that near side.
Drysdale has been interviewing all the red belts.
Oh, really?
He speaks Portuguese, right? So has been to Brazil tons of times. But he is like saying things like, the Fada lineage never trained with Maeda and stuff like that. Like he's like going deep on like Elio, pre-Elio era. Like
Is he writing about it?
He's writing about it, podcasting about it, collecting interviews. Yeah, he's doing. And he was just on Johnny Wester's podcast, Russian Tumble.
Yeah.
Right. What was that? What was the other match we said we were gonna?
Kron.
Oh yeah.
Marcelo and Kron.
2009.
Yeah.
That might be the most current.
It may be. I just think it's interesting in terms of style. Dixon style versus sort of Marcelo's style.
We should, on one of these, we should watch some of them.
Yeah, we should. Oh,
right. Like Jeff
know.
Glover.
We're always talking about Hobson in classes, and
know,
nobody
yeah.
knows what we're talking about. So, yeah.
Like some old Hobson matches or some prone matches, man. Prone's got some great matches. I like the one where Hickson's clucking like a chicken.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, prone would be cool too because we could transition from Jiu Jitsu to MMA matches and see kind of what carries over. That would be
we could do that too.
2-on-1, right? Butterflies. Classic.
Crone will be on Fight Pass now. I can't screen share the Fight Pass, so I'll get flagged on YouTube immediately. Facebook.
Really?
Surprising. But YouTube's algorithm immediately.
Sure.
Because Mike and I did one, and I shared. Apparently, you can do less than 30 seconds. Right. But I was sharing the Silva versus Forrest Griffin, and it flagged it.
Yeah, I think it happened to me once with like music.
Yeah.
Like more than 30 seconds.
That's happened. That's happened to us in the gym. So
yeah.
Keep playing in the back.
Look at that. That was sweet. We did that today.
I'm back to that.
Barry's here for systems class today. There's the dummy sweep for you.
Oh, that was awesome.
That was a good one.
Like a drop Soda, yeah. Yeah, Crohn's keeps doing that, palm in the face. I like that.
He does, yeah.
You got shin on shin with the hook, with that scooping hook on the outside.
Ref got onto him.
Look at him.
Punch him in the face, man. He wasn't.
He goes right back to it.
Probably good.
You know, wrestlers are so good at when someone has you in a front headlock about addressing the arm in front of your chin with that, like pulling out and addressing it with the sit through and stuff.
Yeah. No, they don't tolerate it.
I've been teaching a lot, or not a lot, but the last 2 days since we started the F's, bridging the turtle. That's just such a wrestling mentality that I see a lot of jiu-jitsu guys have, but it's real similar to the butterflies.
Yeah. Yeah. See, I'm turtle for a long time became kind of involved. Just feel more comfortable there. Those spots, and it is about sort of being on your back. You know, I feel like I can play guard and I can play half guard and all that kind of stuff. But, for a long time, I didn't. Turtle was just more comfortable, you know. For wrestlers, that's that. Single.
It was. That's what it's called.
Back to single X again. Not an X guard, but it's sort of like it's an X guard.
Yeah. Like
Single X. Yeah, so he's going back and forth from single X to X.
What's crazy is how much of what we're doing right now I never picked up on when we were going. I think we've been watching Marcelo since we were white belt.
Yeah,
100%. Did you go to that X Guard seminar with me? I remember Mary Beck. Like,
I think so. Was it down at Revolution?
yeah, it's like $25, and we learned X Guard for the first time. But we also had the book. Now the real debate is whether or not we're doing the Marcelo stuff or the Twisted stuff. Because I want to do both.
I have to get your votes.
Yeah, I thought about doing a poll. Be easy to do. We can do a poll on the email too.
Yeah. I'm up for any of it.
Yeah, I've been super inspired by the Marcelo stuff.
I was on his website for a
Forever.
year and a half.
I was just thinking about
Almost
that.
2 years.
Stay forever.
Yeah. It's like a
Yeah. Well, I was on AOJ for a while.
Yeah, I did AOJ for a little bit.
You know what I got good at for being on AOJ was guard.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird, but they had such a great
Absolutely. They absolutely do. It's an active guard pull. And you're actually moving people with it and trying to sweep them almost.
And it goes so much into their guard game. Their collar and sleeves, they would heave the style, the bear, all of the stuff.
Kron looks like he's playing more defense than offense at this point.
Beautiful.
Yeah, he just goes X single, X single, X. On his hip.
Beautiful. I love that leg flare technical stand up. Oh.
Great replacement there.
Wow. And no stop. I like how he
Goes right back
immediately
into
goes into it.
And he did that shin to shin thing to try to lift him up. Nice. Over and over. That's the thing with Marcelo.
Oh. Beautiful. We'll turn it into a pass.
Nice. Yeah.
Oh.
Oh, yeah.
So just the BJJ Fanatics promo they put out of him doing all those chokes. He was things I had never seen or thought of. I was just like, this is just betraying.
Yeah. He does the same stuff and does it so well. You know,
It's like the same two chokes.
You know it's coming, and he's going to do it to you. I think he's better at that than him. Like, you know exactly what Marcelo's going to do. He's going to put it on.
There's tons in weird posture here now. Yeah, Hickson's big on teaching that drop in the center.
Got him in burn. Nice. That was a great replacement right there. A high guard.
This is something places on the labor style suite.
Careful, you best get onto you for doing everything.
I was working the double ankle sweep with Jack a while back, and there's a little subtle detail that he emphasizes on pushing yourself back off the ankles before you, like that, that.
Yeah. I remember Jack talking about that, right? And it pulls that guy forward, so he's got to go back on his knee.
Yeah.
Marcelo's just got incredible balance.
So, man, here's another question. And I wonder if you could figure it out.
Stepping on the arm.
Yeah.
That's good stuff.
Like, I've done 3 privates with Jack, just like this. But, like, a digital scene.
Yeah.
Like, he has a guy, he
Why
shows
not?
things, like, get like 10 people together. He doesn't have to fly to Arkansas.
Well, and you could have people demonstrate what he's talking about on this end, right? That's actually a good idea.
Yeah.
Save a lot of money.
Yeah, and still, because I'm doing another private with him here pretty soon, and it's just
Because it's the
so
overhead
big.
that costs so much.
It's the plane ticket, and the
Yeah.
lodging, and with the beer. You know, I like that. Some people call it the ladder sleep, where you slide down and close your guard around your knees. That's a very common situation that's come up recently. Questions. Remember when OTM was a big band? They may still be on the map.
Yeah.
I should look up their CEO. Their owner is kind of he had his hand in something else. I should look into it. Maybe I just heard about it. He's sponsored that.
For arm drags. Ooh, single. Almost a double. No, other side.
Do you see Hickson cornering on here?
No, I assume he is.
I kind of did too, but this could be back when like Hickson was out of the picture from it. By a minute, I mean like 8 to 10 years. Like the whole first several years I trained, Hickson was out of the picture.
Kron's almost got a lockdown on that. I mean, it's not a real lockdown, but he's way down low on his leg. He's holding on this one.
Let's get out of the single. Swap back over here. And Crohn's back take against Alex Caceres in the UFC.
Yeah.
It's awesome. I've seen Hendricks teach that. I also believe that.
Him jump in the back like that makes no sense to me, though. I mean, that's pretty.
Because Crone's young in this, man. I mean, he's probably, what, 19?
Yeah. Yeah, he would have been around 20 for sure. This is insane. Crone's getting close.
It's like his third time to get taken. It's just that you kick and go for the single.
You know who I remember, we don't have to watch this one because it's not, but like that I felt like on the stand-up had Marcelo's number was Johnny Hendricks. You seen them all?
Yeah.
Johnny takes him down several times.
Yeah,
and
he
I
does.
couldn't believe it.
Yeah. And I wonder if they were, I think they were emphasizing wrestling because I think Marcelo was working on his wrestling.
Okay. Yeah, I could see that. Well, they seemed like they were just doing stand-up for sure.
Yeah.
He keeps going for that waiter seat. Maybe he's using. Maybe he wants to cut to the armbar or something. I wonder.
I think he's just keeping them off balance.
Oh. I chipped my tooth. Like I rolled over myself. Like my teeth went together. I chipped my tooth.
Dude, I've jacked my neck up doing Brand.
Oh yeah, that one particular, that reverse ankle pick, dude. I've always sucked at that one.
Yeah.
I could do the knee bar from there, you know, but
Yeah.
that one's a lot easier.
Good thing about the 10th Planet Dinner stuff is that we do enough Granbys that I'm getting a little better at them.
Yes.
But man, there was a lot of years doing them really bad and just put a lot of pressure on my neck.
I think about those years.
Oh yeah. No, we had a lot of years we were just kind of piecing it together.
True that. That's why, yeah. That's why maybe I'm empathetic to how the process it takes to get better, and like how it is a process. And you do have to. I had to go to private seminars, travel all over the country, competed. I did everything I could, and in many ways I still do. It's just not without the competition.
Well, and a lot of our day-to-day stuff we just had to piece together.
Bridge. Rolling with Dixon, is that a real video? No, it's not. It's got. I bet that's the one everybody searches for. Like,
Yeah,
I want to see that.
Yeah,
That's fine. The first one's not even in video. It might be. I don't see it in the results. So, okay. Marcelo Garcia rolling. Eddie Bravo. Ryan Hall. Ben Askren. Cobrinha.
Oh, did you want to do the Hendricks one since we talked about it a little bit?
Okay, another one. When we do the Hobson one, we should watch that rolling.
Oh, for sure.
This double leg triangle. Oh, yeah. You remember that? Remember we geeked out on that?
It's so influential, though, because it was like, all right, that's how beautiful jiu-jitsu should look, you know?
Well, see, I saw rolling reflections right there. That's what made me think of that. Yeah. So, training takedowns.
Yeah, we'll do a Hobson day.
Yeah.
Fun.
I'm down. Okay, did you pick up that Justin Rader's original wrestling coach is Johnny Hendricks' dad?
Yeah.
It's crazy, man.
I bet.
Did you see how Marcelo like did that with his hook and the single? Like, oh, do I want to hear which leg am I gonna hook?
Yeah. Hendricks is just so strong.
That sort of jab that wrestlers do.
Yeah.
Look how small their little spot is. That's always fascinated me how people can, like, all those New York Championships.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they're packing so many people in there.
Meanwhile, we have like this gigantic spot.
I know.
And I'm just like,
I know.
oh man,
We're so lucky. Well, not lucky. It's due to you guys. I
well,
mean,
it's too, like, we're in this part of the state. Like, Caleb can't. They can't do, like, the property values, the leases, everything. It's totally night and day different.
Oh, yeah.
Like this property in Northwest Arkansas would be millions.
Yeah,
I would estimate.
Yeah. This is just doing arm drags to single legs. I mean, it's nothing.
Nothing too fancy.
Right? He's got Marcelo on his heels so bad.
What I guess what I recall about this is how he's shutting down Marcelo's classic game.
Oh yeah.
Right. Marcelo
Because
keeps doing those.
He turns so tightly on it, right? I mean, there's nothing wasted.
I also remember seeing this and just thinking, like, Marcelo is way better than this guy, and like that was my thought going in, you know.
Yeah.
But man, Hendricks he's going for that little foot sweep off the head steer. I like that. Hendricks is very talented.
Oh, for sure. And his wrestling is sick.
At this time too is when he was near when he was on top. Those GSP fights will take it out. Because that's like probably the trauma of those fights is what sent him from being on top.
Well, and he may have been on performance enhancement.
That too. Then he went to Greg Jackson's and started kicking people in the knee like John Jones. I remember Colby and I were watching that, and he was doing that. He's like up against the cage, and he was like, and did the John Jones kick. He's like, Colby's like, you never did that before you went to Jackson's. Let's see what else. I have not seen Marcelo rolling with Eddie. You want to check that out?
Yeah, I think I've seen that. It's been a while.
What I love about Eddie,
Marcelo Garcia, best jiu-jitsu man on the planet. He's actually probably top 3.
You can see, like, even the Donna steps up. Look how we
what's it like
it's the same approach we're taking. Yeah, I remember I didn't know
shit. That guy's a fucking monster. I couldn't do shit. He wouldn't let me get on him. I thought that in the beginning I could probably get on
like the John Jock sweeps that were like in the FC.
Most
but like even now, like
I roll with that have never rolled with me. It's always the electric try that gets him first, if I get him at all.
Yeah.
So that was the game plan. I just could not get under him. His hips were so strong. He was sprawling so hard. And then I couldn't do shit. Try to work a little rubber guard.
But that's also Eddie's position all the time.
I ended up in the truck for a second.
Half guard getting smashed.
Oh, no.
That's what he
We're
does.
literally working this right now. Look at it.
Yeah.
Look, he's doing that.
This is what he does.
I don't know, man. I don't know. I know for sure
He's hanging
he
on
wasn't
pretty
giving me a
desperately
electric
there.
check, so you have to defend.
And he doesn't have the underhook. So that's
And he's not
wizarding.
Yeah. We drilled that this morning and last night. I love that getting out the side and wizarding them from
So
that.
for sure he was defending that.
Now he tries to go under.
Once he passed my guard, it seemed like I recovered too quickly. It seemed like, he wasn't engaging like he normally does. But I don't know. He inspired me. I'm like, wow, shit. I got to get better. I got to get stronger. So I've been bull, man.
You've been in New York?
That was
Nah. It's been like
definitely made me
5 or 6 years since I've been in New York.
I haven't lifted
Next time I go back, though,
more
I'll
dedicated
get up one of these. Yeah,
It's a pilgrimage, man.
Yeah.
than my jiu-jitsu.
The longest time, I'm like the only reason I would even think
that was a big part of it.
Jiu-jitsu. You know, and now I'm like, okay, I would make a couple
I'm not strong enough. I've never been an athlete, you know, and now, you know, I'm getting old, man. I'm 42.
I guess
can't
Brian
fucking
is
go,
trained
you
with
know.
Marcelo
It's either
before.
make that
You see
decision,
that?
throw in the towel,
He's got that picture.
or just stay in shape.
Oh, Brian Ellis, yes, he did
10,
seminar.
15 years.
Well, you too, you know,
But anyways,
Bryce finally
that
got to
Marcelo
roll.
was definitely part of it.
Right, so
Crazy thing
yeah,
about
he
Marcelo
might have.
is
Bryce might have talked about it on the
I've
first podcast he came on.
taken
But
many
Bryce was,
techniques from Marcelo. His passing, for instance.
yeah,
we're
he
doing a lot
like
of
went
his
to New
passing
York and he was
over the
training
past
Law,
year,
Longo,
year
and
and a half.
Weidman,
Uh-huh.
and trained like Iaquinta
Everything that he
and things
does,
like that.
and he's
But
doing
he went to
over and over.
Marcelo
You just gotta
like a
watch
few
his rolls.
times, and like he
just
kept
take that
asking
shit.
about Marcelo.
That's he's doing all the research and development.
like, and like, but he just kept,
Just persistent.
and then finally he rolled with
He's
him and he
doing
said, Marcelo,
Take that shit.
It's like, but too, what's
He's
scary
putting
to
it on
me
his, you
is
know,
like,
nobody
well, I think
has
you might have been
more
there.
roles
2
on
years
the
ago,
internet
Black Belt
than
camp,
Marcelo.
Bryce rolled.
I got a lot of roles now too, but he's got mad roll. Everybody that rolls
Yeah,
in his
I
gym
know.
gets filmed.
Well, and Bryce keeps
Fucking
getting
put on
better
blast.
all the time.
You want to go with Marcelo, you're gonna
You know,
get
he's
put
getting
on blast.
good
You know what I mean? I knew my shit was gonna be on
And
blast. When I
it's
went.
starting to show. God,
This is gonna be on blast. You know, why wouldn't they?
Right,
Let it
that
out?
was Jiu Jitsu.
You know, I just-
It's
I was
super
hoping
awesome on
I just
Willie when he
didn't
was
want
on
to get
and talking about
massacred. You know,
Eddie
that's what I
and
was thinking.
doing training
I hope he
and
doesn't
stuff.
massacre.
Yeah, I'm glad he got
You
to
know
meet
what I mean?
Eddie.
That'd be embarrassing because there were some
that's,
guys
you
that
know,
he's massacred and that shit's on YouTube.
it's a big inspiration for what he does.
You want to,
Yeah.
you want
I
to be
was
that guy.
talking to people too, like
It looks
Willie,
great to
as
me.
he
I mean,
showed
it's
me
like,
the
you know,
body
you're
triangle.
very humble, but I mean, like the
Yeah.
Like I'd
level
never,
that you're at is.
that's something I've done a couple of times in
I feel
training.
like
I've never hit
if
it in a match.
Take Bruce Lee.
Oh, thank you very much.
You know, but I mean,
You're wrong.
it's really cool to watch.
He's been doing 2-on-1 control, which is kind of a reverse arm drag position. And I remember when he was first getting into it, it's a way to control.
Double
He's got
bag,
both his
maybe.
hands.
I could be screwing that up.
An elbow.
I know,
the
terminology.
rubber guard terminology.
Really
Like when we go
good
through it, I get more up on it.
Yeah.
and stable.
We'll have to do a rubber
It's
guard.
so
one.
Well,
hard
that's
to
what I was
get
thinking.
away
We got to
from
do rubber guard systems thing.
It's what
See, what we
Greco-Roman
should
wrestlers
maybe do is do like.
to another wrestler when they can't get any underhooks or overhooks. Right?
So we got two. So
Because
one
the
do
guy's
twist and one do
T-Rex.
rubber
The
guard.
guy's T-Rex.
Yeah,
And like
we could do
sandwich
you wanna get
those.
Just the 10th planet
You wanna get overhooks.
systems thing.
can't
I mean,
do
the
it 'cause
stuff
he's
that they do
T-Rex.
for
Is that like a
exclusive.
Russian tie?
Yeah.
That
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Or two,
The
even
2-on-1
that,
is
right.
basically
Planet
a Russian
hardcore.
tie.
Because when I
So
started
when
out, it was all
playing
half guard and
Greco-Roman
dogfight.
You need to
and
open up his arms. So
Yeah,
you
that was
can get
all
in
in
there and
Eddie's first
So
book.
it's-
I was telling people, I'm like, you really want to get
2-on-1
into
is
some of
something
his
you can
early
always
stuff.
do.
Check
Is he
out the
doing that
Master
from the ground,
Jiu-Jitsu.
like off his butt?
Yeah, he's doing it from butterfly guard, which in my opinion is
Evolution of the twister.
bringing back
video.
butterfly no
Yeah.
gi.
Mhm.
So years ago.
Huge.
I wonder what.
It's hard to play butterfly guard.
I wonder how Marcelo is right here because Eddie said he's 42.
Butterfly guard with
I
double
heard
underhooks. That's not
somewhere
maybe
that
one underhook
Marcelo
and
was
an
thinking
overhook.
about
But
competing.
it's hard to get inside and get a good
Not
kick. So you
it
have to
like
make
the
that butterfly guard.
Masters,
hard.
like whatever
So
Masters
everyone
all
just
these.
shifts.
I guess so.
down.
Because like I guess what he did is
X-guard,
retired from
spiral,
adult
get a
competition
kick.
and then
It's
hasn't
so
competed since.
hard to
Right.
get
But he might have been
shot
doing Masters. That
upstairs.
could
You
be
gotta- how you
mistaken.
gonna do
I
that?
don't think so. I haven't seen
You know,
it
guys
a while,
all
but
T-Rex.
I just heard
2-on-1. You could do that when a guy's.
Because I think he was doing
Something.
adult as like a 30-something.
And Marcelo is doing that off his ass in butterfly guard, and he's been doing it for a while. And I've been watching him, and I decided we got to get right on this. 2-on-1.
I'm so fascinated by the Josh
You
Wade.
can't get the underhooks. You can't get the overhooks. You can have guard. You can do. It doesn't even have to be.
Oh,
butterfly
right.
guard.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
reason why you don't see it that much is
Yeah.
because Marcelo just knew there was something.
Yeah.
He's stuck.
I'm gonna have my
He's got to perfect it, man. He takes
my
back
chest set
from there
back
as
over
well.
here in the new studio.
2-on-1.
with my tape.
Well,
and
and
reviews.
apparently for that guy, it
So
was
you think this
like
is a game changer?
Yeah,
Jiu-Jitsu
because
became his
you want to
new
get on the
sort of
inside, but if the guy's
outlet
T-Rex,
after
you
his
can't get on
chess
the
career
inside.
was kind
You
of
just
over,
2-on-1
right?
him.
Yeah, and he was in Tai Chi
Either
Chuan
you
also.
yeah.
There's
or
competition
take
footage
his
of it.
back with just that 2-on-1,
Yeah.
or he
I want to
defends
say like I
and
saw a
leaves it open.
documentary or something.
Yeah.
Didn't we watch him on like
It's bringing back butterfly in a big way because now
that
you have, if you
like
stick it
IQ
out,
show? There's like a show
Yeah.
that like Fearhouse is on or something.
Marcelo
Like
here
I've seen a little
he's
docu
stuck with
thing
it,
on
now he's
Josh
got
Wade
it. Now you see that
Yeah, yeah.
shit.
where he's
I
talking
can't remember
about.
where it was, but I know what you're.
No.
You can do the 2-on-1 and hide
It
your
was his
face. So he
book.
can't hit you. You just
There's a
got
book.
to develop.
There's a book. We'll look it up in a second.
Well, and I've seen it,
So
but he
this
does
is
have a
basically
video where
all
he
you
talks
temp
about
heads out there. You
it may have been an interview or something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, man, that Fear House interview is not available.
It's hard. That's going to be,
mindset.
that could just be the opening of the game right there.
Because I've gone back to try and watch it again like a couple of times. I can't find it.
What happened from there? We could just start butterfly just like Marcelo. Hit that 2-on-1 and work
Yeah, I love
on the
that
control.
part.
Know that it's not going to work.
I'm still. I started meditations. I'm gonna start it. I was
Just get a
only
little
listening
right
to
time.
My
it.
son got me back
Just
into
know
it.
you're
He
just
read it like 3 or 4 years ago.
for later.
I
Don't
just
give
sort of
up.
forgotten.
Don't go to your comfort
He's
zone.
who drew
Stay
that
at it. 'Cause once you get to the
photo on
point
your
now you can
Facebook,
butterfly
right?
suitcase,
Yeah.
you just set them up.
That's awesome.
and it gets
Yeah,
as easy
What's
as
he
it is
doing
now.
for school?
It
he's
changes the game.
like,
It really does.
He's still up in Fayetteville. He's studying like international relations and French. And, you know, it's like a lot of people, it's a weird year to be in college. You know?
Yeah.
And so I think he's,
So you get to see your family quite a bit up there, I'm sure, right?
Yeah.
That's fantastic. I need to look at what
but he's also a college student, you know, so
the art of
I assume
learning.
not too much.
That's it. The art of learning.
Yeah.
This is. I want to say that there's a video of him commenting on this.
Yeah, and right, there's an interview or something.
This. I
Where
think
he's-
it's this. Yeah. But that searching for Bobby Fischer is. For anybody that doesn't know, this is the. Unless you've been somebody younger, the world's youngest chess champion
Right,
at 8 years old.
right.
Yeah.
He's like this prodigy, and it's sort of a testament to how similar Jiu Jitsu and games like Chance or Go are. That, you know, you take these sort of simple concepts and they get really complex, and they're sort of endless in the ways that you can do them.
Mhm.
And so they have all, tons of similarities.
I don't even know how to go back to the main full screen or whatever.
Doesn't matter. I probably
Yeah. Well, let's wrap it up, man. I appreciate you taking the time. It's
yeah.
been a good episode. I feel like we had a very deep talk in the middle,
We did.
right?
It went from but it that
It's going to come up every episode, just like coronavirus comes up every episode.
yeah, exactly. But there is, it's relevant, right? Because we were watching Marcelo doing that RNC on
Strangle.
doing the strangle, not a choke at all, doing a strangle, and then it naturally leads to what's going on there, and then man, that's like
That fast.
I know.
Like, I couldn't believe Sheldon went out that fast. I didn't remember it
I know.
being that bad.
Yeah.
Right on, man. Well, we're signing off. Appreciate everybody tuning in.
Thanks, guys. Cool.
Appreciate it, man.
Yeah, thank you. Fun.
What do you think? Do you enjoy podcasting? Like, is it like an outlet for you? Like it is? Because for me, it's like it's such a big outlet,
It's great to